I'm going to have to forgive myself for saying that. No, I'm just messing with you. It's awesome.
That's all good, man. You know, that's why we're here.
No, of course. No, appreciate you coming on, man. A lot of interesting conversation. I love how at the beginning you related for different, both like a physical aspect and then you got it to the religious aspect as well. The reason why I say it, I've been pointing out a lot of religious stuff recently because I've recently started visiting the faith. So a lot of the stuff that I've been referring stuff to me as a person is bound back and forth to the Bible, trying to find the understanding. So it's just always cool to see how it always goes back to it. But before we kind of jump into it, for those listening here, let's kind of kick it off with a regular introduction, who you are, where you come from, kind of like a background, which ultimately led us to here in the podcast room, essentially.
Yeah, Randy introduced me as Michael Grace. I grew up on Long Island from parents of immigrants from Ireland. Literally, my parents were right off the boat. And so my brothers and sisters, they were born there, and I was born here. Grew up on Long Island, and I moved to New Jersey in '85. Met my wife and started commuting into New York. 3 kids. I worked on Wall Street. Prior to that, I was managing bands and concerts because my brother's a world-class flutist, and he's went to Juilliard at 12. Wow. I mean, I wasn't that good. I was the dancer of the family. I was the dancer. So I was really good at that too. But so I got to Wall Street for the wrong reasons with the right ideas. And my mother always just used to say the road to hell was paved with good intentions. And there was no truer sense of me going to Wall Street because I figured, well, I can do it the right way. But being on Wall Street is really tough because you're making money for money's sake. But I love the dynamics of trading. And I spent a career trading, making markets. I set the price in Intel or Microsoft or Apple on a day-to-day basis. Me and a bunch of other people around the firm, we were market makers. I didn't deal with the public. I dealt with other firms, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, whatever it would be. I worked at Lehman Brothers and Wagner Stott and whatnot. But from there, I went into investment banking. But along that whole way, I was always deep into theology. It was one of the things I studied in school. I got I went to school at Upsala College and NYU for a little bit, but Upsala College mostly for management and finance. But I always had studied theology and philosophy along the way, and I was always teaching in the church. I was always, growing up Irish Catholic, that's a big part of our lives. So as soon as I could, I was teaching in the church. This is the time I was in my early 20s. And I continue to do it to this day. Once I left the street, I went to become a teacher. I went back to school. I went back to Columbia University. I got a degree in political philosophy. So I had the finance. I have finance and management and economics as a background. I have philosophy and political science and sustainability as a part of my international relations. And I also have theology. I studied the different types of religions, comparative religion, and then I got a job teaching history and religion at a school in Jersey City, a Catholic school in Jersey City, where my son was going for football. And then from there, I went to William Patterson, where I was a professor until this last semester of economics and finance. I taught financial literacy. I created a class called The Markets, Products, and Environments. But within my financial literacy class, I teach young kids basically the process of budgeting, what money is, how to manage it, what to do with it, what not to do with it, how to read the markets, why money exists, the whole concept of interest rates, and so on and so forth. But I wanted to go back to high school, for the simple reason that I get to be with kids for 180 days as opposed to 12 weeks in a semester, 3 times a week maybe. So I'm now, I accepted a job at a local Catholic high school in New Jersey. I moved from one town. I moved to Blairstown, which is closer to Pennsylvania. And I'm going to be working at a local Catholic high school teaching philosophy and theology this year. And hopefully that's where I'm going to finish my career doing that. Because the connection that you can make with young adults and young kids like that, teenagers and so on and so forth, there is no greater feeling than to watch a kid's eyes when they get that concept and they see that aha moment come over you. You really feel a sense of true fulfillment within your own self. And I can't say that I wasn't successful on Wall Street. I did okay. But I can tell you there has been no greater satisfaction than when I'm sitting down with a student one-on-one and they're talking to me about something, they're having an issue, and between the two of us, we come to a solution for them that helps them grow and understand a concept. And you walk out of that room walking on air. And that, that's the feeling I want to continue to get for the rest of my life by giving back to those around me. Whether it's in my daily life or at school or wherever I can in business and so on and so forth. That's the objective here. It's not a question about making money. It's not the pursuit of that. It's the pursuit of what and I connected with Randy with is the pursuit literally of happiness that Aristotle said it's the ultimate goal in life is happiness. And Randy's motto, his whole mantra is giving people that sense of finding happiness. And that's what drew me to him to find this where we are today.
Wow. It's very interesting. You cover a lot of, say, like, I don't want to say industry. We have a lot of industry experience from all aspects. Like you say, the financial district, the religious aspect, even the teaching aspect. I'm more curious to kind of pick your brain on how often those three industries coincide with each other, where the clash comes, right? Because I feel finance, there's certain areas and aspects of the finance industry that sometimes coincide with areas of the religious realm or the religious world, which ultimately would lead, like you said to yourself, you want to teach people. I'm just curious to see, like, during your time and your learning and your experience from finance to theology to now teaching education, what has that process been like? What have the goods, the bads, the uglies, like what does it look like from someone that's potentially listening to this that can take that on their journey, that they're gonna, their life journey, like this is what it's all about. This is what to expect and what not to really know.
It's it boils down to putting first principles first and second principles second. If
Like
you
a morality principle, essentially.
Morality, even the ideas of what actually the true concepts are of happiness. If you think that the ends justify the means and you're reaching for the means and not the ends, like money is a mean. And the one thing that Wall Street has a tendency to do to most people is they get sucked into the concept of money as an end. It's not. Money's only good for in itself for something else. It buys you a soda. It buys you a car. It can buy you a house. It cannot buy you real happiness. Matter of fact, most of the most miserable people on the planet are the richest people in the world. I mean, I'm not going to disparage Elon Musk, but he seems to have changed a little bit the richer he's gotten. But, and I found that with the guys that I worked with and the women I worked with on Wall Street, the more money they made, the less open they became. And I think that in all these aspects of, the three things that I've really concentrated on in life, they all intersect constantly. It's all about the relationships you have with people. And you have to treat people as ends and not means. They are an end in and of themselves, and you have to treat them as such. The means is something else. So you have to learn that means are means. Your car keys are good for your car to start your car. Your car is good for your car because it gets you someplace. It's not the be all and end all. It's the relationships we have between people.
Interesting.
What I liked about Wall Street is trying to figure out the game. But I understood ultimately that it was the people that really made the last decision on that trade. The thing that moves a market is the sentiment, is investor sentiment. You can study all the charts and all the analytics you want, but the ultimate thing that's going to move any stock or the market itself is how people believe it and how they feel about it. How does that work in theology? Well, if you don't bring God into your life on a consistent basis, you lose the ultimate end. You lose the ultimate idea of what happiness actually is. So, I used to be, holier than thou Mike, so to speak, I guess. But I would say the rosary on the way to work just because I wanted to stay grounded. Because I knew I was going into the battle pits of what money actually is.
Interesting.
So in order to stay grounded, my mother had given me this ring, rosary
I know
ring.
exactly. Silver ring. It has the little balls at the end of it with the cross at the one.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would roll that in my hands on the path train while I was on my way to this. I would make sure that I'd say the rosary every day on the way to the city, just so I would stay grounded enough to know that you can't get sucked into this. There's more to it than that, relative to, in finance, economics, and in religion and in teaching and all the rest of the aspects in business, they all intersect because it's all about the personal relationships we have. What Randy's done so well, and what I really love about what he does, and I'm so happy to have met him in this respect, is that you don't walk into Blue Ridge Winery knowing that it's a winery. You walk into Blue Ridge Winery knowing that it's a connection. There's an atmosphere of people. There's an atmosphere of connection, and it's almost, forgive me for saying this, it almost feels like there's an atmosphere of love in the air. Mm-hmm. The 4th of July celebration was amazing. I mean, and it was just a community of people coming together with a common purpose. And if we realize that there's something greater than ourselves out there, that we all could connect in that, there is nothing that's not interconnected.
I see. That's interesting. Curious on your take on that, Randy.
So I would ask you, like, what made you choose reconciliation for the first talk?
It's something we talked about on our first thing. We were talking about getting over things.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about how we get moved past certain things. In your talk down in the room, in the underground,
Mm-hmm.
you were talking about, how we move past certain things that come across us. I said, well, and we talked about it. I said, well, you need to reconcile these things. And you said, well, can you explain that to me? And I summarized it in those three things. She goes, well, that was a perfect summarization.
Mm-hmm.
Can you write that for me? I said, yeah, I can write that. This is what I teach that. So I think it's a good place to start because we are such a fractured society. We're fractured in our family lives. We're fractured in our spiritual lives. We're fractured in our business lives. Politically, we're fractured. I mean, we could not be further apart, it seems now, than we've been in a really, really, really long time, especially in my lifetime. So how do we bring that back? How do we get ourselves back together? How do we get ourselves close together?
Mm-hmm.
I think if it starts with reconciliation, starting the process.
I'm with you. Do you think that you have a lot of thoughts on these topics.
Yeah.
And it goes broad. Do you think you'll end up doing a podcast?
I'd love to do a podcast because, it's been my goal to launch this thing for 2 years, but COVID kind of threw things under the bus on me. And my partner in Europe that was going to help me back this thing up, it was originally on financial literacy, and I was going to bring this in, but I decided I needed to broaden it out to make myself feel happy about it. And I wanted to start a podcast basically on the 3 things you're not supposed to talk about in a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, you never talk about religion, politics, or money in a bar. But I think those are the 3 topics I think we need to discuss more and bring them together and find common ground upon in which we can all make things happen with. And if we can do that, once a week, twice a week, and get, people come in and have those questions answers, and then we can answer those questions and discuss these things. I think we can really start the healing process for all of us.
Maybe a neat twist on things. Basically the 3 topics, but in a positive light.
Exactly.
Neat.
Not a way to draw fists, not a way to, like push the bar stool back and let's go at it. We're talking about, let's find common ground here because there's a lot more than we think. There's a lot more common ground than we think there is.
Great stuff. No, I'm with you, Mike.
Yeah.
I'll be a listener. I'm with you.
Yeah. I'd love you to be there with me.
It's awesome.
The whole journey. I think it's a great journey we can start. And each journey starts with 1 step.
Right.
It?
There you go. I love that.
Let's keep walking.
Man. It's awesome, man.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much, man.
I really appreciate
cool.
it.
It's cool meeting. I always, whenever Randy's like, "Hey, I met somebody, let's bring him." I'm like, "Yeah, well, absolutely." I'm always curious. I do quickly before I end it here. I want to pick your brain on one more thing.
Sure.
We don't have to dive too much into it because if we're gonna, I think developing some sort of podcast it'd be really interesting to see. My question would be those 3 topics. Why are they so difficult to talk about at a bar? What makes those 3 topics so difficult to speak at a bar?
Passion.
Because everybody's passionate about their
They
own.
get very passionate about it. I mean, if you go back to my background in philosophy, Plato's, and the ideas of the passions that in Aristotle that drive us. People are very passionate about politics because Machiavelli screwed that all up by making it the art of the possible as opposed to the art of what we could do in terms together. And I think religion. People are very passionate about their religion, and I wrote a paper one time years ago about there's no such thing as a religious war, and my professor nearly killed me. But the thesis was this: is that religion is often used as a guise for other people's ends. So if you're a king back in the day and you wanted more grazing for your horses, or you wanted that land over there because you loved the hill and you wanted to build a new castle on it, but you got to take it because the other person owns it. You got to get your army together and do that. Now, if you say, listen, I need more grazing pasture for my horses, so get your swords and let's go. We're going to kill the people. People aren't going to follow you. But if you tell them that they hate your God, well,
that's a different story.
There's a different story. They're probably going to go, oh, they hate our God? Let's go.
Yeah.
They're very passionate about that. So, and politics and money.
Yeah.
Go to any household and find out what breaks up a marriage or a relationship quicker than money. And, besides infidelity, there's nothing more than that. And by the way, most people are, find those reasons for infidelity. It is rooted in, again, putting second things first and first things second.
Yeah.
If you do that, you won't achieve either if you put second things second and first things first, you may not reach first principles, but you'll get the second ones. But if you put second principles first, you're going to lose them both. And you're going to be left empty-handed.
Very nice.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah,
All
right.
I really
so
appreciate
much.
you guys. Thanks very much, man. It was a great time being
Thanks,
here,
man.
and it's awesome to meet you guys.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks,
appreciate
dude.
it. Thanks
Thanks,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Absolutely.